Hello and welcome back to the Widow podcast. Thank you so much for joining me again. This week, I am really excited to have the lovely Sabine Horner come and join me and share her knowledge, her wisdom, her skills. Sabine has so much to offer. We had a wonderful chat on Instagram earlier on in the year, and I was blown away, absolutely blown away, and had so much positive feedback. I've asked her to come and join me again on the podcast so that we can help reach more people to understand a little bit more about grief and nutrition and what we put into our bodies and how we look after ourselves. Sabine is a registered nutritionist. She is an Ayurvedic, have I said that right, Sabine? Ayurvedic health coach. Yes. And also works with yoga therapy. So Sabine, hello, thank you so much for coming and joining us today.
Hello, everybody, and thank you very much, Karen, for inviting me to have this conversation with you.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you. So Sabine, obviously, you are also a widow, sadly. Do you want to tell us just a little bit about you and your story?
Yes, I hope I can be brief. So my nutritionist story actually started before my husband became ill, because I got interested in Ayurveda because I used to have IBS problems, irritable bowel syndrome, and weight issues. I was always struggling with weight. And then when my husband was diagnosed with leukemia, I knew instantly we had to, change to an Ayurvedic nutrition. I don't want to call it diet, because the word diet is just misused all the time. So Ayurveda is the traditional system of medicine in India, and it's more than a diet, it's a lifestyle around the prevention of disease and also addressing imbalances in the body. And so I thought that because Ayurveda gave me the immediate explanation of why he got leukemia, I thought that's where we need to start. And despite pressure from his family, not to do it and not to change our diet and lifestyle, we did it, and it helped him so much. And then when he died, after stem cell transplant, I had started studying nutrition at the Northern College of Acupuncture in the meantime. So I put Ayurveda to the side for some time and decided to do that first. And I studied nutrition, science, and practice from a functional medicine point of view, which is the Western equivalent to Ayurveda, I would say, because it's also a very holistic way of looking at the body and what's going on and the causes of disease and imbalances. And in the meantime, I'd also started to do Kundalini training as a Kundalini yoga teacher, which wasn't supposed to turn me into a yoga teacher. It was supposed to give me some respite. It was meant to be my retreat while Kevin was undergoing his treatments, because I was under so much stress. It was unbelievable. Having to go from York to Leeds every time with his food, because by the time he had his stem cell transplant, he didn't want to have any hospital food anymore. So we struck an arrangement with the hospital, and I was allowed to bring in homemade food for him. But it was very stressful.
Yeah, it takes, well, all of it, that the whole picture is incredibly stressful, isn't it?
Yeah, apart from the nutrition side of things. So and when he died, I struggled to keep what we had started, to keep it alive and to keep it going. But I thought I can't revert to the way I was eating before, because that would be something like a betrayal to our efforts. So and then I had actually to have a kick in the bum from my Ayurvedic doctor, the one that we were seeing for Kevin's treatments, as well as we had alternative treatments as well as Western treatments. And he this doctor, he said, you need to have 3 happy meals a day. And with happy, he meant like lots of vegetables, lots of food that has fiber in it, because that lifts our mood. It helps with so many things. So, and I still struggled, of course, because somebody can tell you need to have 3 happy meals a day, but you still have to get up, get the ingredients in, and get cooking again. So I managed to. I usually left out the evening one and just had some homemade hot chocolate, a very nutritious one, but still. And then I got kicked in my bum again from my Ayurvedic practitioner. So I was seeing a doctor and a practitioner from the Ayurvedic medicine side of things. And she then gave me a handout, like, okay, you need to have 3 different vegetables in your meals, because I was eating mainly something like meat or fish with 1 or 2 vegetables, or 3, if you count garlic as well. And that wasn't enough. So, and I thought, how can I get, like 3 different vegetables in and 2 more, because she said you have to have 5 different ones every day. So, and then I remembered our stir fry, the green stir fry recipe that we'd cooked together, my husband and I, and that's how my famous stir fry recipe was born.
That sounds amazing. A stir fry recipe that's
it's so versatile. It's became my go-to, like, and it's so quick to
quick
do.
And easy.
Yeah.
And that's what you need, isn't it? That is what you need, because when you have just lost a loved one, you haven't got the energy or the inclination, even, I don't think, to want, especially when you've been cooking together, you've been cooking for someone, with someone, all of a sudden when it's just you and you are in the depths of despair, the last thing we want to do is go and cook a nutritious, healthy meal, and it's too much, isn't it? It's too much to bear.
Yeah, and you definitely need support with that in the first few weeks and months. You just, somebody has to help you. Yeah, that would be perfect.
Yeah. So I kind of always joke a little bit with people, because when Simon died, I know when many people have lost loved ones, you kind of end up with sort of 15 different lasagnas in the freezer that people have cooked for you, which is lovely, and it does really help, for sure. But I know we've talked before about food and what we need, and you've kind of touched on there about having more vegetables. When we are in those early days of grief and really not feeling it, what would you say are the best thing we can do, that maybe we could get other people to cook for us, or that we could prepare for ourselves, that's fairly easy and simple yet nutritious, and going to help us in that grief, that raw grief that we experience?
So let's first talk about what other people can do for you, because lasagna is really a lovely gesture, but the pasta is not really what we need. And the tomatoes can be irritating to our system, which is already upset anyway by the grief. So we need to be really gentle on our digestive system, because what we experience in grief is a huge emotional stress response, and that just has a huge impact on our digestive strength. So we need to go easy. We need easy to digest things, not sandwiches, because that's the most difficult to digest food. I was so surprised when I learned about that from Ayurveda.
Is that because of the bread?
Yeah, it's about the gluten. It's also what we put on it, like the ham and the cheese. It's like 2 different, very difficult to digest proteins on top of the gluten, which turns into a gooey mass in the stomach, and it just clogs everything up. And and not many people can actually digest gluten very well, and especially not when you are going through the throes of grief. So it has to be easy, and it has to be like it also depends on the bread, like white bread, of course, hasn't got any fiber in it. So it will just drag you down mood wise, energy wise, in every respect. So if you're already feeling low, you need something to cheer you up, and colors and spices would do that, So if you cook for somebody who's just, become bereaved, a vegetable soup with some red lentils in it would be perfect, because the red lentils, whatever vegetables you put in it, will harmonize, balance all the flavors. That's what I learned. It's just fabulous. And then you blend it a little bit. So everything that's already blended, mashed, pureed, is so much easier to digest. It's like baby food. We need baby food again. Yeah, because we also turn into children, don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know whether you remember, but I felt like a child again.
Yes.
Completely lost. And
yeah, I can absolutely remember it so well. You have to be spoon-fed almost, don't you? You have to sort of be got up and kind of you have your hand held throughout the day to make sure you're kind of doing everything that you need to do to look after yourself. You touched on a little bit there that the grief response, that the stress response that the body goes through. Could you just sort of expand on what happens in our bodies a little bit when we are going through grief?
Yeah, so we have this ancient response to any threat, and that's the stress response. And it's very it's very important for our survival. And acute stress is really good, to get us out of danger. Then if the stress response subsides, then everything's fine, and you go back into having you go back into a relaxed state. But in grief, that's not what happens, right? It's we're grieving for months or years. I mean, not so acutely, but the first few weeks and months are definitely a very acute phase. So we're in chronic stress. And that's inflammatory, that causes inflammation in the body. But also the stress response makes that the blood doesn't go to the digestive system, because that's not important. When you run away from the saber-toothed tiger, that humans faced in ancient times, in prehistoric times, you don't need, to digest your food when you run away. You need the blood in your limbs and in your heart. And your liver is working really hard to produce the glucose that you need, the energy to run away. So the body is busy with other things, with supporting other body systems, but not the digestive system. So it's really, really important to realize. And I think that's the missing link between the grief symptoms and the health issues many of us get further down the line. I would say that everybody suffers some health issues to some degree after going through bereavement. I'm definitely still recovering. I'm doing my best, but it's just like it was such a massive onslaught on my system, the trauma and the stress, that it just takes time. Yeah. And in this time, we just have to gradually learn to build a new routine and build ourselves back up again, from the ground up again.
Absolutely.
We've definitely completely changed.
And that's really interesting, isn't it, that you're I mean, how long has it been for you now, Sabine?
4 years and a few actually days, weeks.
Bless you. And that's really interesting, isn't it? With all your knowledge and all the work that you've done, you're still recovering from it. Yeah. And that just highlights the impact that this has on us, doesn't it? Because I would bet my bottom dollar that you have probably looked after yourself nutritionally a lot better than most of us would, because we don't have your skills, we don't have your knowledge. So we're not doing what you do. And if you can still feel that within your body, what's going on for us in ours, and what are we missing, because I don't know if you'll agree with this. I think we get used to feeling a certain way, to putting up with certain things that are showing up in our body and thinking it's normal. And kind of just going, oh, it's all right, you know, I'm a bit tired or a bit stressed, or, you know, this keeps showing up for me, but it's okay. Essentially, it's just how life is for me. And it's not until I think you start to really take notice or change things and realize the impact that can have on you. Because, you know, I am now a health coach, but I'm not by any stretch a nutritionist, and I don't have your knowledge and skills. But I went on a year's sort of health coaching program because, you know, Simon died of a heart attack very suddenly at 43. And after he died, you know, food became my crutch. It did. And alcohol. And I really didn't look after myself very well. And after a couple of years, I thought, do you know what, Karen, this isn't really working for you. I just felt awful. So I kind of turned it around. I'm not perfect. You know, I haven't got it all sorted. But the difference that I felt from exercising more, looking after myself better, creating an awareness around what I was doing, what I was eating, how what I ate made me feel, which I'd never really connected with before, and how much more alert, how much more energized, less foggy, less sluggish, just eating well and putting good food in, how that impacted me, and as a result, how that impacted my life and everything around it. But, you know, it took a lot of work, and it takes a lot of kind of unlearning and relearning, doesn't it? Because we're not taught all this stuff. There's the convenience, and processed foods are just out there in abundance, and they're so cheap, and we don't understand what happens to our food, let alone then what our food does to our bodies when we're putting it in there. And I know you talk a lot about the sort of the grief gut connection, don't you? Which is so interesting. So can you talk a little bit about that as well, Sabine?
Yes, because the thing is, we need a lot of blood, a lot of fluids, and a lot of energy to digest our food well. And that's what I learned, not from studying functional medicine, but from studying Ayurveda. And so I've already talked about lack of blood because it goes to other body systems, but we also forget to drink. And then we turn into what one of my bereavement counselors called energy vampires. So we have negative energy, not even, zero energy. We have negative energy. So we are sucking energy from people around us. So people who support bereaved people have to be aware, that they are giving people energy, providing them with really essential energy to carry on. So, and then when we haven't got the fluids because we are not drinking enough and the energy, we get all sorts of digestive issues, gas and bloating, constipation, diarrhea, acid reflux, you name it, irritable bowel syndrome. So, and that's what people put up with, right? Not even when they go through bereavement, but even before, they may have had digestive issues already. Gas and bloating are early warning signs that there's something wrong and you have to address it. We learned that in Ayurveda, gas and bloating needs to be addressed ASAP. So it's not something to just ignore because it will just impact your health in the longer term.
I mean, how many people live with gas and bloating? I mean, it's just, it's almost like that's normal.
Yes. Yeah. And acid reflux, it just take lansoprazole or omeprazole or, all these PPIs, and that just makes everything so much worse again, as if it weren't bad enough already. So really, you have to start from the top with, drinking enough so that you have enough saliva, that you produce enough acid, stomach acid, digestive enzymes, and bile. They all need fluids. And, where are the fluids going to come from if you don't drink enough? But I'm not saying overdrink, because you can also overdrink and then you flush out electrolytes. And that's another thing that people have never heard of. I had never heard of. electrolytes before I studied nutrition. So electrolytes are really important to, for example, to get nutrients into the cell and waste products out of the cell. If you don't get waste products out, you can imagine that the toxins just accumulate in the cell, and that will impact your energy levels and your mood and everything. And if you don't get the nutrients into the cell, that will impact your energy as well. So real electrolytes are like a calcium, magnesium, potassium, chloride, sodium, salt. So they're important. We need them in the right balance. So that's why I recommend my energy boosting coconut water smoothie, because coconut water has a lot of electrolytes. Banana has electrolytes as well, but some people, they can't really digest banana really well. They put on weight like me. So, but in a smoothie, they're all right, I must say. But when I just eat banana like this, it just doesn't agree with me. So yeah, so digestive issues, they need to be addressed. And so if you make sure that you drink enough, so I would say like 8 glasses of water, and I always say warm water, because again, if we drink anything cold, that will cause blood constriction in the stomach and digestive system, and again the blood will be diverted away from the digestive system. So we need to keep the blood there, so avoid anything cold and avoid anything gassy, you know, like there's so many carbonated drinks. People drink carbonated water. If you already have gas and bloating, that will make it worse. You will have even more gas in your system.
That's so
it's
interesting, isn't
simple
it?
things that you can change. You can already
when you
see.
say warm water, room temperature or actually warm?
Well, it shouldn't feel as a shock to you know. You shouldn't feel anything cold when you drink it in your stomach.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I would say in the summer, yeah, room temperature would probably be okay.
Yeah.
But in the winter, I would say, you know, boiling water is actually also better, because again, it seems to be easier for boiled water to enter the cells.
Okay.
I don't know the mechanism, but it seems to help to boil water first.
Okay. That's really interesting. And what about, some people just don't like water. They can't, it's not palatable for them. So what would you suggest is a helpful way to get more in for people?
Well, try all sorts of herbal teas. There's so many herbal teas around. And my favorite one is ginger tea, fresh ginger tea. And I know that that's an acquired taste for some people. But once you are used to it, you really get to love it. My husband didn't like it at first, and then he just had it every day. And you can add some lemon juice to it, so vitamin C.
Okay, so it's okay to add those things. That's not going to
and even some pepper, because that would, you know, like warm it up a little bit, because what we need is, you know, like warming up our digestive system, because when we eat cold things, we eat cold drinks, our body needs more energy to process the food, to break it down, because it needs to cook it then in the stomach. If you already cook it beforehand, the body needs less energy to process the food.
Okay. That's, and is it right as well that we shouldn't drink too much with our meals, because that affects how we digest our food? So we're trying to drink in between meal times.
Yes, we definitely half an hour before, if you've forgotten to drink, but don't clog it down. Just, you know, like sipping throughout the day would be the best.
Okay.
But definitely have something if you haven't been drinking before your meal. And you can also add a slice of ginger, or just bite into a slice of ginger with some salt, and that will get your juices going. But you do need to replenish your fluids.
Interesting. Okay, so that helps the grief gut connection. So obviously everything goes away. We need our gut needs easily digestible food, but we need plenty of fluid in that as well.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about easily digestible food, you've already touched on kind of pasta and bread are possibly not the best things for us. Tomatoes are not great. Soups, smoothies are obviously good. That baby food. As we move it, through our grief and we're, maybe wanting to have more proper meals, what helps that grief gut connection, so that we absorb what we need?
Well, fiber is the basic thing that we need for everything. It just makes us full for longer. So it helps with cravings, because we do have sweet cravings when we are bereaved, and I can go into that if we have time. It also helps with elimination, and elimination is very important to get rid of toxins again. So for our energy, our mood, as you can imagine, toxins impact on those. And they also bind cholesterol, for example. So if you have a high cholesterol, fiber will bind it and eliminate it from the body. So fiber has got so many benefits, and the most important one, it feeds our gut bacteria, the beneficial ones. And I do have to touch upon them because they are so crucial for our gut health. And gut health is if we look well after our gut, then we look really, that will take care of our health. If our gut is not healthy, we are not healthy. And the beneficial gut bacteria play a key role in keeping us healthy. They keep the gut lining intact. And when the gut lining is leaky, then toxins and bacterial waste products can enter the bloodstream. And then we get systemic disease. We get all sorts, the immune system starts to respond to things that shouldn't be in the blood. We get food intolerances, food allergies, autoimmune diseases. It's all because food particles that haven't been digested properly and waste products enter the bloodstream and other toxins. So the immune system just gets overburdened, and also the liver, because the liver has to filter the blood that comes, from processing, the gut processing our food. That blood has to be filtered by the liver. The liver is our main detoxification organ. It just like gets overwhelmed, and then that has an impact on the immune system. So every system in the body works together, but the gut is the crucial bit.
The gut, I've really learned a lot about the gut, and they say it's our second brain, don't they? And a lot of our feelings, everything that goes on in our body stems from our gut. But how do we, I'm assuming grief has an impact on our gut bacteria because of the stress response that we're in. How do we try and combat that? You say fiber. What are good sources of fiber for people to consume, and how can we kind of try and maintain that healthy gut bacteria?
Okay, so there's two main distinctions of fiber. There's insoluble fiber that creates bulk, and then there's soluble fiber that's like more gel-like. And when we are grieving, the gel-like soluble fiber food is really nice and soothing, and calms inflammation because of the stress in our system. And so flax seeds are really, really good, and that's why I recommend putting flax seeds in the coconut water smoothie. And it also has other benefits, of course. There is marshmallow root, which you can drink as tea. There is slippery elm, which is also soothing to the system. So that's soluble fiber. And then you've got insoluble fiber in vegetables, everything that's... So insoluble fiber is fiber that the body doesn't digest. It helps with elimination. So that's in all sorts of vegetables and fruits. So I like apples. Stewed apples would be really good. Also for breakfast, for example, would be easy to digest and really good for the beneficial gut bacteria because of the fiber content. So an apple a day keeps the doctor away is true. I have, when I don't have my coconut water smoothie in the summer, I have stewed apples all the time.
Okay.
So I think that really, I found that when I didn't have that as my breakfast, my whole day was just going wrong. My mood was unbalanced, my emotions, everything. So
I definitely, that what we put into our body first thing, I think, has a huge impact, doesn't it, on how we feel.
Yeah.
And, you know, speak to so many people that high calorie, high sugar cereals, toast, you know, just the things that they just either high in sugar or have very little nutritional value in them. You know, I do try and encourage people, if you're going to eat things like bread or pasta, buy the whole wheat version. But I know you talk, you know, sometimes it's better, isn't it, with quinoa, buckwheat noodles, I think you mentioned before. Is it basmati rice is a so yeah, like you say, trying things that probably have more nutritional value in them, but it kind of feels the same, if that makes sense, that, you know, you're not kind of foregoing anything. In terms of bread, that's a tricky one, but I think you said sourdough is a little easier for our guts to, is that right?
Yes, because the bacteria that I use to create the sourdough, they have already pre-digested the flour for us. So again, it's just like takes less energy to process the bread. And I always say spelled sourdough is the best.
Okay. Yeah. So, but, you know, just trying to avoid these things. So, you know, as we've discussed, it's difficult for people, and we tend to lean on the wrong foods, don't we? Easy foods. Alcohol as well creeps in, sugar creeps in, doesn't it? We eat sometimes a lot of processed kind of foods. I mean, where would you say to someone to start? You know, say their diet just feels too big to manage as a whole. What would your advice be on, like, start here and try and kind of solve this area of what you're eating?
Well, the easiest way to start getting more fiber into your meals is to, whatever recipe meals you can cook, which you don't find too, you know, cumbersome, is to add some more color. Eat a rainbow. So really go for a variety of vegetables rather than your 5 favorite ones. Expand your repertoire of vegetables. Go into the supermarket, you know, even Morrison's has got plenty, you know, that used to be our traditional supermarket. So you don't have to go to Waitrose to get plenty of variety. And go for fennel, go for chicory, go for leek, I don't know, kale. It doesn't tend to be that popular. Or beetroot is really good for the liver. So just expand and go for color. I mean, just looking at the color in the pan will lift your mood. I'm pretty sure it will, because it always does it to me, you know. when I look at the different colors in my pan, it's just like it makes me so happy. We've lost the sound.
Oh, is that, sorry, that was me, my microphone, sorry. Thank you, Sabine. I think it just feels so good when you know what you're putting into your body is so nutritious and it's so good for you, and that in itself feels great. And then when you've consumed the food that you know is highly nutritious and good for you, you feel better. You're then not going down that route of, shouldn't have eaten that, now I feel really rubbish, I'm not, you know, we're kind of just putting ourselves down all the time in our heads, that self-deprecating kind of talk, isn't it, that our inner critic seems to like to throw at us consistently. And it's kind of taking that action, isn't it, to put in good, knowing that it's going to help you deal with the emotions and the feelings and the practical side of things that you've got to face as well in your grieving journey, because it's huge, isn't it? You know, I always say, like, grief is a full-time job, you know, but you don't get a day off, you don't get to go home, you don't get any holiday pay. It's there, it's relentless, and you have to work really hard. And you know that one of the best ways that we can support ourselves through this is by giving our body what it needs, essentially, and not adding more stress when they're already in a very high stress state, aren't they? You know, our sympathetic nervous system, all those stress hormones are just rife around our body, and it's kind of learning how we can sort of bring in our parasympathetic nervous system, isn't it, and just calming things down for ourselves. And we're not very good at that. We're on the go all the time. We feel like we've got to keep doing and doing and doing. We're forever putting ourselves down in our heads. We don't like to ask for support. We don't want to be a burden on people, so we're trying to do it all by ourselves. And it is learning how we can support ourselves better, isn't it, through this? So how can we help ourselves in grief to make better choices? You know, when it feels like it's just too much, you're tired, you know, what can we do to help ourselves make better choices?
Well, just go for one simple thing, even if it's only drinking, you know, the 6 to 8 glasses of water, warm water, herbal tea, or whatever. That will make a massive difference. We in Ayurveda, we say that water is one of the most powerful herbs, but it can't be patented, so nobody can make money out of it. So just use water. You know, water is giving life. We consist of 70 or 80% of water. So water is really essential. And reduce coffee. I know I'm a coffee addict myself, but I had to reduce my coffee intake, and I go for one really good cup of coffee in the morning. I go for organic because it hasn't got the pesticides in it and the toxins. Yes, it costs more money, but if you only have one cup, you know, spoil yourself. You deserve to spoil yourself. You know, you're not going out to the cafe so often nowadays. Just spoil yourself at home and get some organic coffee, and have it with some milk, some almond milk or some oat milk, to really, you know, like lessen the effect of coffee, because coffee can actually cause additional stress on the kidneys, especially, and the kidneys produce all the stress hormones, so they're already overwhelmed in grief. So
is that coffee, because of the caffeine in it, Sabine?
Yes, it just like produces more, you know, spikes in the body, and just like it's like beating a dead horse, you know. If we keep drinking too much coffee, and also caffeine, can have the same effect in black tea, but coffee is actually the main thing, because people do tend to drink 5 or 6 cups of coffee a day. And I used to be one of those, and it's not good for us.
Is it better to have caffeine-free, decaffeinated coffee?
Depends on how the decaffeinated coffee has been produced, because again, you know, in the decaffeination process, they can use like substances that are not so good for our body. So I would say go for organic coffee with some caffeine, but tone it down with some milk. And you can even put some coconut oil in it to make it creamy, and that will lessen the effect even more. And just enjoy it and sip it and really be mindful. Because I remember just, you know, not
downing.
Not really downing, but just leaving it and not really enjoying it, and then having a sip of cold coffee. So really sit with it and enjoy, and have your coffee ritual in the morning. Make it a ritual, but it's for you. It's your me time, your self-care time.
because I have learned that one of the worst things we can do is end our day on alcohol and start the day on caffeine, because it just the effect it has on our systems is huge. It's really huge. And how many of us, at the end of the day, a couple of glasses of wine, wake up in the morning, couple of cups of coffee, it's kind of what we do, and the stress that adds onto our system. So okay, so drinking more water. You also talked about breath work and how that can help, and just how that is accessible and free to us all, to help kind of calm our nervous system down a little bit. So is that something people can easily do? Do you have to learn how to do it?
It's very, very easy to do. As you say, it's free. It doesn't cost anything, because we do have to breathe anyway. So we just a little bit deeper. Because of course, what we tend to do when we are grieving, we tend to breathe only from the chest up. We have very shallow breathing, and that causes also the neck and shoulder problems. So deep breathing is breathing really deep into the abdomen, into your tummy. And you may have to put your hands on your tummy at first, and because we don't tend to push the tummy out on the inhale and then pull the abdominal muscles towards the back of the spine on the exhale. We tend to do it the other way around. So it really, again, it's something to practice mindfulness with, to just connect with our breath and see what our breath is doing, regularly at any time of the day, when you remember, oh, chips, what's my breath doing? Oh, I think I'm breathing a little shallowly, so maybe I should put my hands on my tummy and just try to relax my tummy muscles. That takes some effort, to relax, because of course we are so tense that relaxing of the tummy muscles might feel a little bit like an effort at first. But once you've done the first inhale deep into your belly, and then the exhale, pulling the tummy muscles towards the back of the spine, the next inhale becomes so much more relaxed and deeper. That's my experience. And if you do this before and after a meal, if you do it before the meal, you can actually up your digestive enzymes by 25%.
Wow.
That's really
significant.
Significant benefit. It's just deep breathing a little bit deeper just before a meal, and then after the meal, if you do the same, just relax and just connect with your breathing, and maybe also do some deep breathing if you feel like it. Then you give the stomach time to process the food, so the blood stays in the stomach for 15 minutes, and then go back to the computer or to some other jobs you have to do. Remember that when you digest your food, you need as much blood in your digestive system as possible. So don't watch television if you can. I know it's very tempting when you're on your own to sit in front of the television, but again, the blood goes through your eyes and your brain to process what's going on the screen. And so it's just very simple things like that.
Yeah,
so
that is
just
really
to be
interesting.
aware, it's just, you don't have to do everything, but just become more aware of what you're doing and what simple things you can do, gradually to help yourself and to digest your food better, and then to feel better, because when you digest your food better, then your energy level increases, your mood lifts, and your mental clarity as well, the brain fog, and your depression. I was close to getting into a depression, and I turned everything around, but I could have easily fallen into that gap as well. So I really find it frustrating when people, say, I've got brain fog, I've got depression, I've been put on antidepressants, and I'm on anti-anxiety pills. And it's just it's so avoidable.
Yeah. Do you know what? I loved it. I think in our last conversation, the grief is a natural process, but we fight it. we don't know how to grieve. It's society kind of dictates that, you can have 3 weeks off work and then it's like, right, back to normal. And exactly to your point earlier, it takes a very, very long time, years, really, doesn't it, to recover, to restore, to recreate your new normal. And in that we don't give ourselves the time and the space that we need to nurture ourselves through this, and then we think we're doing it wrong, or that I did it. I went to the doctor and I was on sleeping tablets and antidepressants. When I reflect back, was I depressed? Probably not. Like you feel depressed, but clinically, chemically, I don't know, but I think I was just in the depths of grief, and that felt like it could help, when actually there was probably a lot of other things that I could have done to support myself through that process that wouldn't have involved me taking the tablets. And it's not to shame anyone or to say that that's wrong, because for some people it is the right thing. But I think, you so brilliantly say we're not looking after ourselves mentally, physically, nutrition, all of it, are we?
But also nobody tells us. I mean,
no.
Bereavement support people, I mean, they do their best, but they only, like, look at the mind, what's going on in the brain, in our emotions and feelings, and they have not been trained to look at the gut.
No.
But the gut and the brain work together, so one influences the other.
Yeah. So interesting. I'm conscious of time, Sabine, but I just wanted to sort of touch on sugar, because I think that's a biggie. And it's something that we all turn to a lot. What can we do to we still like those sweet things, but we're eating all the wrong sweet things. and you've kind of said a bit how grief makes us crave the sugar. So can we just talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so we get sugar cravings for 5 reasons, really. We get neurotransmitter imbalances, and one of the main or very important neurotransmitters, not that the others are not important, is serotonin, which is the happy hormone. And 95% of it is actually produced by our gut bacteria. And stress impacts the gut bacteria, so serotonin levels are impacted, and that can make us crave carbs and sugar. Then, of course, we have lack of energy, and when the body lacks energy, especially the brain, it craves sugar. Glucose is the main fuel for the brain. We also, of course, crave sweet things because we crave comfort. So it's and I can't remember the other 2 now. But I think the fourth one is when our beneficial gut bacteria are depleted, then of course the more harmful ones get into the majority, and they crave sugar to survive. So one impacts the other. Again, it has to do with gut health, big time. What can you do? Like, we don't really crave the sugar, we crave the sweet taste, and everything that's nourishing has a sweet taste. So like sweet potatoes, everything that has fiber in it, even meat, like in small amounts, maybe blended into a soup to make it more easily digestible at first. But don't go for a big steak, and not very late in the evening. That's really the wrong time to eat a big steak. Because our digestive system is not working in the evening. So that's another thing that can be easily rectified by having the main meal at lunchtime. So other things you can do is you can have, instead of the white sugar, where there's nothing in it, there's no nutritional benefit in white sugar, but there's maple syrup, which has nutrients in it. There's raw honey, which is amazingly beneficial. It also feeds the good gut bacteria. It's antimicrobial, it's anti-inflammatory, it's good for the lungs, so especially important now. So raw honey, I always stress raw honey, which means that it's not been heated up, it's not been mixed with sugar, it's really taken from the
How do you
beehive.
know? Does it say raw? If you want to go and buy it, does it say raw honey?
Well, I usually buy the organic one because I assume that organic, they know that they should not heat it up.
Okay.
But you can also go to a local
bee farmers and
bee farmer and ask them. That's what we did, and they said, well, they couldn't pay for the label, you know, organic, but that's what they did, you know, they just put it from the beehive into a jar, and that's it. And so raw honey is really good, and dates. Especially medjool dates. Yes, medjool dates cost more money, but if you don't have these cravings, and you don't, when you eat a lot of processed food, you actually eat more than you need, because, you know, like the body is still craving, has still got these cravings because it still lacks the nutrients. The body's cravings are a sign that the body needs something, and you need to listen to these cravings. If you have sugar cravings, then just think, am I emotionally, mentally, or physically malnourished? Yes, we are all three of these in grief. So then try to put more fiber into your diet by including more colorful vegetables. You know, these sort of things can help stop the cravings. And alcohol, you know, can be a lack of one of the neurotransmitters, GABA. So very difficult for a Western doctor to diagnose GABA deficiency, but there are GABA supplements. And so I would say consult a nutritionist if you have alcohol cravings and you can't stop them. Then there is definitely some nutrient deficiencies and neurotransmitter imbalances going on.
That's so interesting. That's so interesting. So what can we do with these products? Can we kind of, the honey, do we sort of drizzle it on cereals, or not cereals, don't mean cereals, breakfast, like if you were to have porridge or something like that? I mean, what can you do with these things to make them feel like a sweet treat?
The porridge, for example, if people have porridge in the morning, then you could add some maple syrup on top. I always have raw honey with some lukewarm water and some apple cider vinegar in the morning, because that's really good for the liver and the gallbladder to, you know, get all the digestive juices going in the morning and our digestive system revved up in the morning. What else can you do? Well, raw honey, you can also put them in energy balls, if you've heard of energy balls. What else do I do with raw honey? Oh, I also put them in my coconut water smoothie. Yes.
Yes, nice. Yeah, sweeten it up. Yeah, and I guess you can use the dates in the energy balls as well, can't you?
Yeah, the dates. You can also use them in porridge and also in the coconut water smoothie. The dates are really good because they also have fiber.
Yes.
I've already stressed.
I just love eating them. I love them. I have to be really careful because if I buy them, I eat too many. But I just love medjool dates. So they're fantastic. Do you know, I think I just wanted to touch on, because we talked about it before, and I think it's important, sort of supplements and sort of the vitamins maybe that we're going to be deficient in, because I know there's a lot that we're deficient in, that's really important to us. So what would you recommend people do there?
Okay, the first thing I always do with my clients is I have them tested for vitamin D, because I think most people who have health issues, they have a vitamin D deficiency. So, and it's really good to know your basic levels, even if you haven't got any symptoms, but symptoms can be fatigue, depression, anxiety, blood sugar problems leading to weight gain, muscle aches and pains, that sort of thing. Vitamin D has been also linked to diabetes, to high blood pressure, to all sorts of
Wow.
chronic health issues.
Yeah.
Fibromyalgia, for example, rheumatoid arthritis, you name it. So vitamin D is really important to have checked. And so your GP can test it, have it tested, and it's for free via the GP. If your GP doesn't want to do it, then you can do it. Go to the NHS website. There's a very good test. It costs £29, I think, at the moment, and you get the results by email. So it's very easy to do yourself. It doesn't cost the earth, but first try it by your GP and see how far you can get.
Yeah.
And then magnesium, because vitamin D works together with magnesium. So, and we all magnesium deficient, all of us, not whether we're bereaved or not, because this pandemic is just stressful for everybody, and stress depletes magnesium quite heavily. So everybody should supplement with magnesium. I did again. Sometimes I stop doing it, and then I start doing it again, and then I just feel the difference it makes to my sleep. So if you have any sleeping problems, then just try to up your magnesium intake at least 400 milligram a day. But you have to be careful when you're on medication, like blood pressure medication, because magnesium lowers blood pressure naturally.
Okay.
So really be careful with when you're on medication. And I know quite a lot of bereaved people are, so you have to check that with your GP.
Okay.
Unfortunately. And the other thing, multivitamin would be not to miss, because when we lack energy, our thyroid, which regulates our metabolism, just slows down to preserve our energy reserves. And that can slow down our digestion, can cause constipation and depression, can also cause weight gain. And our thyroid needs a lot of nutrients. Vitamin D again, magnesium again, but also iron, selenium, vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin A. You can already see it needs so many vitamins and minerals.
Yeah.
So if you have any suspicion that you may have a low thyroid function, then the multivitamin would be good. But again, if you're on medication, it needs to be checked by a nutritionist whether it hasn't got any interaction with your medication. And I would say nutritionist, because they know a little bit more about supplements than some GPs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also about the food, like that would help you get your nutrient levels up, and how to improve your digestive strength. So it's a like there's a lot to consider, a lot of things that nutritionists do to correct imbalances.
It's huge. It's absolutely huge, isn't it? And we could talk for hours about this.
Yes.
I'm sure.
Yes.
I find it all so interesting. I really do. And I really want to help people connect more with what they're putting in as to what they're getting out, because it's all so connected. And the long-term effects of not nourishing our bodies on in an already very stressful situation. We haven't had time to talk about it, but the grief symptoms and how they can go on to become health problems. But it does start with having that awareness, doesn't it, of what you're putting in, and why you're putting it in. Are you hungry? Do you need that thing, or do you need to maybe get out in nature and take a walk, connect with someone you love, dance in the kitchen to a song, find some joy in your life, which I know is very difficult. And when I say joy, I don't mean you have to go out partying, but we can find, exactly to your point, sitting in your garden with a really nice cup of coffee and being present with it, and allowing yourself that time and that space. We can find joy in those moments because we're nurturing ourselves. And I think sometimes we're looking externally for joy, and sometimes
Yes.
it's about looking
Yeah.
inward, isn't it? But
I also like
um,
to add, like I've learned from, reflecting on my own behavior and habits, that it all starts with self-love. We need to learn to love ourselves again. If we haven't done it before, then, for the first time. I think that's one of the big lessons from bereavement, is to, when there's no partner left to love us, we have to learn to love ourselves, and then it becomes easy to make some better choices.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we do become very critical of ourselves, don't we? And we don't love ourselves. And I know it sounds a bit corny and a bit cheesy, people are like, oh really? But we are our own biggest assets in life, aren't we? And we have to be our own best friend. The relationship we have with ourselves is the most important relationship you're going to have with anyone in your entire life. You have got to live with you for the whole of your life, so make that relationship a positive one, a loving one, a compassionate one, nourish it, nurture it, learn to kind of love you. And it does help you make better choices, doesn't it? And it helps you kind of create something meaningful, which again, it takes time, and we all need a bit of help in that sometimes. So Sabine, if people want some more information, they want to find you, track you down, work with you, follow you, how can people get in touch with you and source you out?
Well, unfortunately, my website is still not ready because I'm so busy with other projects. It should be up by hopefully October, if I can get my act together. So that would be www.sabinehorner.com. So my name is spelled Sabine, and then my surname Horner. It's a bit difficult to spell. You can also find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook, on YouTube. I share some cooking videos, so you can always cook along with me if you find it too boring, too lonely, whatever, too difficult to cook, on your own. Just switch on one of my cooking videos and cook with me. And they were made with bereaved partners, for bereaved partners. So
brilliant.
Make most of them.
Yeah.
Where else am I? I have a well-being community for bereaved partners where I share all sorts of tips, recipes, wisdom videos about, how to help ourselves with simple things.
Where's that? Where can people find that? Where's that group?
On Facebook. So if you type in Wellbeing Community for Bereaved Partners, you should be able to find that group.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yes, and on LinkedIn you can find a whole link tree with all sorts of other things, free resources. And I also do free interactive session on health issues after loss, and the next one is coming up on the 24th of September.
Brilliant.
In a week's time, about from 10 to 11 a.m. in the morning. So you can find that one on Eventbrite if you look for health issues after loss, and you can also find a link via my Instagram profile on the in the link in the bio.
Brilliant. That's a lot of help and support out there for people so that they can learn more from you. So, Sabine, you have just been incredible. Again, your knowledge is just out of this world. I think you're incredible, and everyone needs to come and see you and speak to you and help support themselves through their grieving journey. You understand it from first-hand experience, and I know,
unfortunately, yes,
I know, and it's so sad, but it's just lovely what you do, and it will help so many. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for everything, for being here. We hugely appreciate it. So thank you very much, Sabine.
Well, thank you, Karen, and I hope I will be able to help many more people in the years to come.
You will, I'm sure. Thank you.